Hello everybody, welcome to my channel.
Brian Johnson, the voice that powered AC/DC into rock legend. Brian Johnson, born on October 5, 1947, in Dunston, England, is best known as the powerhouse vocalist of the iconic Australian rock band AC/DC. With his unmistakable raspy voice, electrifying stage presence, and working-class charm, Johnson became one of rock's most recognizable frontmen and helped guide AC/DC to some of the most successful years in their history. Early life and musical roots. Growing up in a modest family in northern England, Johnson discovered music early, drawn to the energy of classic rock and roll and the raw charisma of British pop. Before his rise to global fame, he performed in several local bands, eventually gaining a following as a gritty and expressive singer. His early career included work with the glam rock group Geordie, with whom he enjoyed moderate success during the early 1970s. Joining AC/DC. Brian Johnson's life changed dramatically in 1980 after the tragic death of AC/DC's original singer, Bon Scott. When the band began searching for a new frontman, Johnson, recommended by Scott himself in earlier conversations, was invited to audition. His powerful vocals and easy fit with the group quickly secured him the role. Only months later, AC/DC recorded what would become one of the most influential rock albums of all time, Back in Black. Featuring Johnson's unmistakable vocal style and infectious energy, the album became a global phenomenon and remains one of the best-selling albums in music history. Johnson's debut instantly cemented him as a vital force within the band. A defining voice in rock over the following decades, Johnson's voice became synonymous with AC/DC's sound: raw, loud, and unapologetically authentic. He contributed to numerous successful albums, including For Those About to Rock, We Salute You, 1981, The Razor's Edge, 1990, Black Ice, 2008, Rock or Bust, 2014, his on-stage persona, flat cap, sleeveless shirt, and roaring delivery, made him an unmistakable figure in the world of rock music. Health challenges and triumphant return. Johnson's career faced a sudden crisis in 2016 when doctors warned him of severe hearing issues that threatened permanent loss. Forced to step back from touring, he temporarily departed from AC/DC, leaving fans uncertain about his future. After undergoing advanced treatment to address his hearing problems, Johnson made a triumphant return. In 2020, he rejoined AC/DC for the album Power Up, which was celebrated by fans and critics alike as a powerful comeback for the band and a testament to Johnson's resilience. Beyond music. Outside of AC/DC, Johnson has explored numerous interests. He has hosted television programs, written memoirs, and indulged his passion for motorsports, a longtime personal hobby. His natural storytelling ability and down-to-earth personality have made him a beloved figure well beyond the rock stage. Legacy. Brian Johnson stands as one of rock's defining voices. His ability to step into a nearly impossible role and help AC/DC achieve even greater success has made him a legend across generations. With decades of unforgettable performances behind him, Johnson's contribution to music remains both monumental and enduring. Brian Johnson, the enduring power of a rock icon. Brian Johnson's journey from the industrial streets of Dunston to the world's biggest stadiums is one of the most remarkable stories in rock music. As the longtime vocalist of AC/DC, Johnson's gravel-throated howl and high-voltage charisma transformed him into a worldwide icon. His story is not just about replacing a legend, but becoming one. Early life. A working-class beginning. Brian Francis Johnson was born into a working-class family in northeast England. His father, a former coal miner and sergeant major in the British Army, and his mother, originally from Italy, instilled in him a strong work ethic that would later define his musical career. Growing up, Johnson found joy in singing, joining church choirs and local groups before discovering his love for rock and roll. In his teens, he became captivated by the stage, performing with various small bands throughout the late 1960s. Geordie. The first taste of success in the early 1970s, Johnson became the lead singer of Geordie, a glam rock band known for its energetic performances and gritty sound. They found modest success in the UK with songs like "Don't Do That," "All Because of You," "Can You Do It," while Geordie never reached massive international fame. The band helped Johnson refine the raw, raspy vocal style that would one day define AC/DC's most iconic era. A life-changing phone call after Bon Scott passed away in February 1980. AC/DC prepared to record a new album but were faced with an unimaginable challenge: finding a new vocalist who could honor Scott's legacy while bringing something uniquely his own. Johnson was invited to audition after AC/DC's producers recalled how impressed Scott had been by Johnson during a previous show. His audition was explosive, full of grit, volume, and a natural chemistry with the band. Within days, he was hired. 6 weeks later, they entered the studio to record Back in Black. Back in Black, a monument in music history, released in July 1980. Back in Black became a seismic moment in rock history. Johnson's soaring vocals and expressive scream fused perfectly with the Young brothers' thunderous riffs. Classic tracks include Hell's Bells, Shoot to Thrill, Back in Black, You Shook Me All Night Long. The album sold tens of millions of copies worldwide and stands as one of the highest-selling albums of all time. It not only redefined AC/DC after tragedy, it redefined Johnson's career. Solidifying his place in AC/DC throughout the 1980s and early 1990s, Johnson delivered one powerful performance after another. Albums like Flick of the Switch, 1983, Fly on the Wall, 1985, Blow Up Your Video, 1988, The Razor's Edge, 1990, kept AC/DC at the forefront of hard rock. The Razor's Edge especially became a major success, featuring hits like Thunderstruck and Are You Ready? Johnson's voice, raw, gritty, and unmistakable, became a defining force during the band's MTV-era resurgence. A voice that won't quit. Johnson's signature style is centered on a powerful, raspy upper register and aggressive, almost percussive delivery, remarkable stamina during live shows. His technique is unique, equal parts controlled force and natural grit. For decades, he managed to perform at extremely high volume and intensity, sustaining a vocal sound that few singers can match. Hearing loss and unexpected hiatus in 2016. Johnson received devastating medical advice. Continuing to perform live threatened permanent deafness. Forced to leave the Rock or Bust tour, he stepped away from AC/DC after 36 years. His departure shocked fans around the world. Johnson later described the period as the darkest time of my life, explaining that singing was not just his job, but his identity. Science, innovation, and the road back. Determined to return, Johnson worked with engineers and hearing specialists who developed technology that allowed him to hear music clearly again without damaging his ears. After years of testing, his hearing stabilized, and his dream comeback became possible. In 2020, Johnson rejoined AC/DC to record Power Up. The album was a triumphant return, honoring the late Malcolm Young and proving that Johnson's fire was far from extinguished. Life beyond the microphone. Away from music, Brian Johnson has cultivated a rich and colorful life. Motorsports. A lifelong car enthusiast, Johnson has raced professionally and hosted car-related TV shows, celebrating everything from vintage models to high-speed modern machines. Writing, he authored memoirs such as Rockers and Rollers and The Lives of Brian, sharing stories from his youth, his racing adventures, and his decades with AC/DC. Television. Johnson has appeared in documentaries and hosted programs where he interviews musicians, drivers, and other cultural figures. A legacy cast in Thunder. Brian Johnson's influence on rock is undeniable. Stepping into a role thought impossible, he helped AC/DC not only survive a tragedy but reach new heights. His voice fueled generations of fans. His resilience inspired countless musicians, and his authenticity kept him beloved in an industry known for extremes. Even after decades on stage, Johnson remains a symbol of hard work, humility, humor, and pure rock and roll energy. Brian Johnson, a rock legend's spirit, sound, and legacy. Brian Johnson's rise to global fame with AC/DC is often told as a stroke of destiny, a talented but modest English rocker stepping into one of the most intimidating roles in music history. Yet the full scope of Johnson's story goes far beyond a single album or era. His life reflects resilience, humor, craftsmanship, and an unwavering commitment to rock and roll at its most raw and electrifying. A distinct vocal force. The anatomy of Brian Johnson's voice. Brian Johnson's voice is one of the most recognizable sounds in rock music. Unlike many vocalists who rely on traditional singing techniques, Johnson built his style around power, grit, and natural resonance. Key characteristics: high-pitched rasp, a controlled but ferocious distortion that became AC/DC's signature after 1980. Explosive projection. Johnson can hit high notes with a force comparable to a scream yet maintain musicality. Rhythmic phrasing. His vocal delivery often mirrors the band's tight, riff-driven grooves. Endurance. Decades of touring highlight Johnson's remarkable stamina, performing long sets at ear-splitting volume. Influences. Johnson has credited early rock and roll singers, blues shouters, and British pub rock musicians for shaping his style. His voice bridges old-school rock grit with modern heavy metal intensity. Songwriting. A hidden strength. Though Angus and Malcolm Young remained the main songwriters in AC/DC, Brian Johnson's contributions were far from minor. Lyric writing. On Back in Black, Johnson wrote lyrics under immense pressure. The band wanted a celebratory, hard-edged album despite the grief of losing Bon Scott. Johnson delivered lines that captured AC/DC's classic spirit, cheeky, rebellious, and full of swagger. Songs like You Shook Me All Night Long, Hell's Bells, Shoot to Thrill feature Johnson's clever wordplay and intuitive understanding of AC/DC's tone. Simple, punchy, and instantly memorable. Life on stage. A performer built for stadiums. Brian Johnson's stage persona is uniquely authentic. While many rock stars cultivate theatrical identities, Johnson radiates a natural, working-class charm that audiences deeply connect with. Signature traits. Flat cap. A tribute to his Newcastle roots, it became a trademark. Energetic stride. Johnson runs, jumps, and prowls the stage with contagious enthusiasm. Constant grin. Fans often remark on his joyful expression, even while belting out aggressive vocals. He performs not as a distant rock god, but as a man genuinely thrilled to be on stage, something that endeared him to millions. Navigating the shadow of Bon Scott. When Johnson joined AC/DC, he faced an unimaginable challenge. Replace a beloved and charismatic frontman with a massive global following. The band emphasized that he was not replacing Scott but continuing the legacy. Johnson handled the pressure with grace. He avoided comparisons. He honored Scott without imitation. He approached the role with humility and respect. Over time, fans embraced Johnson as an essential part of AC/DC's identity. And today he is celebrated not as a replacement, but as a co-architect of the band's greatest successes. The Razor's Edge and the 1990s resurgence while Back in Black was Johnson's explosive debut. The early 1990s brought AC/DC another massive wave of popularity. The Razor's Edge, 1990. This album revitalized AC/DC at a time when rock music was evolving. With tracks like Thunderstruck, Money Talks, the band reached new audiences, showcasing Johnson's powerful delivery and renewed energy. The world tour that followed became one of AC/DC's most successful, with Johnson proving he could energize crowds of every age and culture. The 2000s and a new era of strength as the band entered the 21st century, Johnson remained a rock-solid cornerstone. Black Ice 2008, one of the band's late career triumphs, Black Ice, sold millions worldwide and produced new fan favorites. Johnson's voice remained remarkably strong, defying expectations for a singer decades into his career. Rock or Bust 2014, although created under difficult circumstances due to Malcolm Young's health, Johnson delivered a spirited performance. The tour became one of the highest-grossing of the decade. Personality: the gentleman of hard rock. Despite AC/DC's wild reputation, Brian Johnson is known for being friendly, humble, generous with fans, warmly humorous. His interviews are full of stories told with self-deprecating charm, and he often deflects praise toward his bandmates and crew. Fans view him not only as a rocker, but as a genuinely decent person. Motorsports, a second passion. Johnson's love of cars borders on obsession, in the best possible way. Highlights: participated in professional races, including historic competitions. Owned and restored high-performance cars. Hosted automotive TV shows that combined storytelling with high-speed action. His enthusiasm for motorsports matches his passion for music, loud, fast, and exhilarating. The Dark Years, loss of hearing and forced retirement in 2016. Johnson's world changed abruptly when doctors warned that performing could cost him his hearing permanently. Impact: he left mid-tour, devastated. He avoided public life during treatment. He described the time as heartbreaking beyond words. Fans around the globe rallied in support, recognizing how vital Johnson was to AC/DC's soul. Triumphant return with Power Up 2020. After years of innovative medical treatment, Johnson's hearing returned to a workable state, allowing him to rejoin the band. His return was emotional, not just for fans but for Johnson himself. Power Up was considered a celebration of both Malcolm Young's legacy and Brian Johnson's resilience. Critics praised Johnson for sounding rejuvenated, powerful, and as commanding as ever. A cultural and musical legacy that endures. Brian Johnson's influence expands far beyond AC/DC. He represents the power of perseverance, the grit of working-class rock and roll, the joy of live performance, the strength of authenticity over image. Generations of rock singers cite him as a major influence, and his work continues to inspire musicians worldwide. A legend still standing. Brian Johnson's life story is a testament to passion, determination, and the enduring power of music. From small pubs in northern England to the world's biggest stages, he has stayed true to himself, humble, hard-working, and fueled by pure rock energy. His legacy is already secure, but his spirit continues to shine as brightly as ever. Brian Johnson, a titan of rock whose voice defined an era. Extended edition: Brian Johnson's legacy spans more than half a century of music, storytelling, resilience, and passion. With AC/DC, he became not just a frontman but a symbol of raw power and rock authenticity, a figure whose influence radiates through stadiums, airwaves, and generations of fans worldwide. This extended article dives even deeper into his influence, artistry, personal story, and lasting cultural footprint. Early inspirations. How a childhood spark became a lifelong fire. Long before stadium lights and global tours, Brian Johnson's musical foundation was built on the everyday rhythms of Northern England. His upbringing in a tight-knit, working-class family shaped his identity as a grounded, relatable rock star. Musical imprint. As a child, he sang in choirs and youth groups. Learning projection and harmony. Became captivated by early rock pioneers like Little Richard and Gene Vincent. Absorbed the attitude and bite of British blues rock during the late 1960s. This blend of influences gave him a versatile vocal toolbox, melodic enough for ballads, gritty enough for hard rock, and expressive enough for soulful passages. Geordie years. The unsung training ground. Brian Johnson's experience with Geordie in the 1970s was crucial to his development, even if the band didn't break globally. Why Geordie mattered. It gave Johnson professional recording experience. He developed his identity as a high-energy frontman. He learned to control his rasp without losing pitch, something that later became essential for AC/DC. It proved he could command large crowds long before Back in Black. His stagecraft, call and response, arm waving, crowd participation, was refined during this period, laying the foundation for his later world tours. The audition that changed music history. When Johnson arrived to audition for AC/DC in 1980, he didn't know he was stepping into one of the most important moments in rock history. Why Johnson fit instantly. His voice naturally complemented the band's massive guitar attack. His personality, friendly, humble, cooperative, meshed perfectly with the young brothers' no-nonsense style. His work ethic matched AC/DC's famously strict studio standards. The connection was immediate. Within days, he was not just a candidate, he was the singer. Inside Back in Black, a creative explosion. Recording Back in Black in the Bahamas was not just a process. It was a whirlwind. The band worked with intensity, knowing the world was watching to see how they would recover from tragedy. Johnson's role in the album. He wrote lyrics astonishingly fast, sometimes completing songs in a single night. He contributed vocal melodies that matched the young brothers' riffs with precision. His tone added a modern aggressiveness that helped AC/DC evolve. The album's success, tens of millions of sales, transformed Johnson from a local singer into a global superstar almost overnight. Tour life with AC/DC, a high-voltage marathon. AC/DC's tours pushed the limits of what a rock singer could do. Some concerts lasted well over 2 hours, packed with relentless, high-range vocals. Johnson's live performance philosophy: give the crowd everything from the first second. Stay humble, every stage is a privilege. Have fun. If you're enjoying it, the crowd will too. Even into his 60s and 70s, his live performances were defined by intensity, energy, and authenticity that many younger singers struggled to match. Backstage personality: the heart behind the thunder. Many who meet Brian Johnson describe him as one of the kindest figures in rock. Traits often mentioned by friends and crew: down-to-earth manners, self-deprecating humor, a love for storytelling, generosity and gratitude, zero ego. Despite massive fame, he often stayed after shows to chat with fans, share drinks with crew members, and greet local workers, treating everyone with respect. Creative chemistry with the young brothers Johnson has repeatedly emphasized that AC/DC is a band defined by simplicity, but achieving that simplicity is a surprisingly meticulous process. His creative input: vocal phrasing that locks perfectly into Angus riffs, improvised moments during rehearsal that end up on records, the ability to capture AC/DC's signature party hard attitude. Although the young brothers remained the main composers, Johnson's contributions helped shape the emotional and rhythmic identity of the band's modern era. Hearing loss. The silent battle behind the music. Johnson's hearing issues were not sudden, they were gradual, worsening over years of touring, loud engines from racing, and natural aging. Why it was devastating. Singing was his identity. He didn't want to endanger the band's live quality. Leaving mid-tour was emotionally crushing. He described the experience as watching your life's purpose vanish. Technology, triumph, and the power of determination. Johnson's return is one of the most inspiring stories in modern rock. The breakthrough state-of-the-art auditory technology helped restore clarity. Specialists developed a system to protect him during performances. Johnson dedicated years to rehabilitation and testing. His comeback on Power Up was welcomed as a miracle by fans and music press alike. Legacy. Brian Johnson's place in rock history. Brian Johnson is not simply the voice of AC/DC, he is a pillar of rock music. His legacy includes one of the greatest vocal debuts ever, Back in Black. Decades of stadium-shaking performances, a personality that grounded one of rock's biggest bands' influence on metal, hard rock, and modern rock vocalists, a triumphant comeback story that inspired millions. He is celebrated not just as a singer, but as a symbol of perseverance, joy, and rock authenticity. An enduring icon still loved by millions today, Brian Johnson remains a cherished figure, still writing, still performing, still telling stories, and still connecting with fans around the world. His voice, his spirit, and his legacy continue to shine as brightly as ever. Brian Johnson, the relentless spirit of rock, comprehensive expansion. Brian Johnson's impact on rock music is vast. But even more impressive is the depth of his personal character, creativity, and resilience. This extension explores new angles of his life and artistry, his relationships within AC/DC, his recording methods, his philosophy of performance, his connection to fans, and the wider cultural influence that has grown around him. Building bonds. Johnson's relationship with his bandmates AC/DC, despite their global fame, remains a band defined by tight internal bonds and mutual respect. Johnson's connection with the young brothers, Malcolm and Angus, was foundational to the group's chemistry. With young Malcolm, the band's rhythm guitarist and backbone, admired Johnson's humility and work ethic. Johnson often said Malcolm worked harder than anyone he'd ever met. In return, Malcolm trusted Johnson's instincts and valued his loyalty. With Angus young, Johnson and Angus developed an instinctive on-stage connection. Angus's frenetic guitar energy paired perfectly with Johnson's roaring vocals.
Bye bye, thanks for watching. Bye.